Hey, I'm Gabby and I'm a wet and wet oil painter, and today I wanted to do a really simple scene that I've done before and share it with you guys and just give you sort of a really simple idea for a painting to do. So I have 4 colors. This is primary blue. It's really close to like a phthalo blue. And then this is a turquoise, and it's like a phthalo turquoise. And then cad yellow and black. And you could really do this with just regular phthalo blue if you want to, if you want to follow along. So let's get started. So we're going to start with a 2-inch brush. Now on the canvas I already have a thin coat of liquid white, and we're going to get started right away. So we are going to load our brush, and I'm going to start with this primary blue. Again, you can do this in sort of any color scheme that you want, but I'm going to start just with the primary blue. You can kind of see it. It's very similar to phthalo blue. And we're going to do the crisscross sort of motion and lay down this blue. Now basically everything we do up here we're going to do down here, except instead of doing crisscross motions down at the bottom, we're just going to do straight across motions like that. And as I didn't want to flush the color out on this painting with a lot of white, this is, it's just a very, very, very thin coat of liquid white that I have on here. So what I grabbed was a little bit of Gamsol paint thinner just to thin it down. And you can do that if you need to. You could do this also with like a liquid clear if you wanted to keep it really, really true to its color. Grab some more of that primary blue, and we'll just keep on laying it down. Now I'm going to take some of that turquoise color that I had and sort of bring it up into that. And that's why I didn't just do phthalo blue, because I wanted to actually have a little bit of a color variation. You could also do this with like phthalo blue a little bit lower, and then like a Prussian blue if you wanted. One thing, we don't want to go too low, or for that matter too high. I'm going to wash my brush. To wash my brushes I use Gamsol. I use it for thinning and for washing. I'm going to grab another brush, and you could do this with whatever brush you want. I just don't want to get a bunch of these brushes dirty. And since I used blue on this, if I try to use yellow even though I've washed it, it's going to bring some of that blue with. And I don't want that. So I'm going to take some yellow. Again, you can do this with any brush. This is like a little 1-inch white nylon brush. the first time I painted this picture, it was during the summer, and I live around a lot of lakes, and as I was driving by the lake that we live by, I stopped and sort of watched the sunset. And a lot of times if we have really good clear days in the summer, our skies will either be yellow and blue or orange and blue, and just that's about the only colors that you have. And it was really pretty, so that was what inspired this picture. Now you can see I haven't brought those two colors together. So I'm going to use a goat brush. I use these for blending. They make these for watercolor. But if you have like a blender brush, this works too. These goat brushes are super soft. They do like to shed though, so if you ever get one, just be aware of that. And I'm just going to very, very gently blend this line. I like to use these goat brushes instead of using like my 2-inch brush when I do my blending, because it's really, really good for getting the marks out. And I don't like having lines on my paintings. There we go. Okay. So now we have our sky and we have our water, and those are the two things that we really need. And I might come back and put a little bit more color in the water, we'll see. Okay, so now we are going to take the black, and then I'm going to use that same 2-inch brush. Now that I'm using black, I don't mind. And you have to sort of mentally decide where your sky is going to end and your ground is going to start. And I have this sort of wilted down, and so it's kind of at a point. And then I'm going to do some really gentle taps. So it's just pushing up against like this and just getting that little bit of an angle. And the harder I push, the bigger that stuff is going to become, but I want this to look very distant. I'm going to take a smaller brush, and I'm going to move a little bit further back up the horizon. And then they're just such tiny little spatial differences, because I want this to be far away. But I'm coming forward just a tiny bit, and I'm not coming like down at an angle. I'm like sawing my way down, if that makes sense. And just like that, I have the distant shore of a lake. I am going to take one of these bigger brushes, and these are really cheap. You can pick these up at most art stores. You can do this with any brush. I just want something that's going to be really soft and sort of smooth. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of the bottom of that black. Now, as I come closer and they're taller, then I'm going to pull down a little bit further. And then I have a little roll of paper towels here that I can wipe my brush off on. And if you start to feel like you're getting like a lot of dark on it, it would be helpful to do that. So I got this nice and wiped off, and just ever so gently very, very simple way to make the distant shore of a lake. Okay, so now we're gonna take that black brush again, this brush that we had going, and we're going to make sort of some banks. And I'm just tapping the brush. Now if I wanted it to look more like it was grassy, I would flip it upside down like this and tap it. And we'll just work our way down to the edge of the picture. And then I'm going to do another bank on the other side. And I want this to sort of look like it's kind of a muddy area down here. So that's why I had it flipped up and then I flipped it back down. So this will be sort of a smoother surface. Very simple. And now we obviously have the banks on this side. We're going to put a little bit of detail up into this front bit. There's not a whole lot to this painting. But before we do that, we're going to put a little bit of stuff into the water, just to give our water a little bit of movement. We don't want a lot of movement, especially since it, you know, you have pretty straight, relaxed reflections in the back. So I'm going to take a knife, and this is that turquoise color. Again, you could do this really with whatever color you want. And I'm just going to slide my knife in a few different sort of places and just make some lines. If you do this, the closer you make those lines together, you want those further back. And you can do as many or as little of these as you want. I'm going to grab a little roll of white. And on the top of those, I'm just going to tap. And not on all of them, just sort of here and there. And then just sort of to pair the colors together a little bit, I'm going to take a little bit of that cad yellow and mix it with a little bit of white so that it's a little bit lightened up. And it's got a little bit of sort of blues and stuff in it too. It's a little bit varied. And that's okay, I just want to have, you know, the movement in the water. Have little bits where the light is hitting and reflecting off of the water. I think I'll take a couple of them and put them a little bit further back into here too. There we go. Plenty of movement. Like I said, we don't want too much movement. Now, we're going to take that black and with a script brush, like this, so you can see it, we are going to thin some of this black paint down to the consistency of India ink. So not watery, not so that the paint separates out from the thinner, but just so that it flows really nice. I did a little video on how to use these liner brushes. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It might make your life a little bit easier, especially if you have issues with that. And then practice a lot before you actually do it. That'll save you some trouble. So we're going to make some long grasses. I think one of the biggest challenges of oil painting is actually consistency. Whether it's the consistency of the background, the consistency of, you know, what you're using to do things like mountains, consistency. It's just definitely a big thing. Now I don't want to make all of those grasses quite as long because you want to sort of have the bottom filled in, because you know grass, it's just like scraggly hair. As it gets to the longer pieces, it'll be thinner. I was going through my pictures today getting ready for an upcoming show that I'm going to be doing, and I saw this picture in my pile, and I was like, oh, I really love that picture. And every time I look at it, I always think, oh, I really love that picture. What I should really do is take that picture out of my pile and keep it for myself. I do that every now and again. But I thought this would be just a really simple one to share, and an idea for people to do. Okay, so now I have sort of some grasses going there, and I'm going to make some decorative stuff on those grasses. So I'm going to make some cattails. I make lots of cattails because I like cattails. I'm going to use a paintbrush. If you have a mull stick, it works. You can make a mull stick. If you don't know what that is, look it up. I'm just going to use a paintbrush, and you can place it like on the side of your easel. I actually place it on my picture in a place where it's not going to sort of disturb stuff. And then I'll go back and fix any marks that it makes. But you use it to steady your hand. So we'll make some cattails. So it's just a start and a really deliberate stop. And you can overdo cattails and then really screw them up. So I suggest, I mean, you can do things however you want, but I suggest if you're going to do cattails, this is how you do it. Don't try to, you know, make big, detailed cattails, because it'll look a lot more realistic if you just do it this way. I think we'll do one more cattail. I'm going to push not quite so hard. Actually, I'll do another one over here too. And by not pushing so hard, it all of a sudden just creates distance. So you can see that some cattails are closer than others. All right, I'm going to make some sort of details on some of these grasses. So all I'm doing is sort of dabbing my brush onto the canvas and just making these little dots. Just to make some different grasses. I'm going to make like a couple pieces of grass that are sort of coming up this bit closer to me. As Bob Ross would say, bravery test. So I'm going to push harder, and I'm going to put in some really long, very close-up grasses. To do these sort of taller grasses, you don't want to move as fast. You have to put a lot more pressure onto your brushes, and make sure you have just a whole bunch of paint on your brush. And on some of these grasses, I can do this where I sort of let them branch off, because grasses do that sometimes. And sort of the fun thing about bringing these grasses up really high is, you know, with the blue, it's darker to, you know, it's harder to see them. But when you bring it up into the light area, you can really see the grasses better. Just some very simple grasses. And you could really do more stuff with this if you want. You could do, you know, maybe a couple pine trees in it. You could put some more detail into the trees in the back. Sometimes I'll do that where I'll purposely make them look like little like pine trees and stuff, just to give them detail. That one has sort of sprung. And guys, that's it. Very, very simple painting. Very small color palette. Like I said, you can do this with orange. I like to do it with yellow and orange. I do sometimes orange, sometimes yellow. Either way, it looks very up north. And then, you know, a simple tree line to make a lake, and then a little bit of stuff down here, and then some big grasses. Very simple. I think just about anybody can do it as long as you can figure out how to use one of these guys. And that's it. So I'm Gabby. If you could like, share, subscribe, that would be wonderful. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the comment section and I will address them. Until next time, happy painting. I'm back as an amendment to this video. After I stepped back from it, I realized there was something that I sort of needed to do, and I wanted to share it with you guys, so this is it. If you look down here, it looks a little bit more filled out, and I just took my brush, grabbed some of that black, and I swept it up, and then you can see some of them I've sort of swept this direction. And by doing that, it just sort of gives the whole thing more of a grassy, natural look. Anyways, that's it. Again, until next time, happy painting.